Welcome. This is part 2 of the 10-step series to building your own website. So today we're going to cover steps 6 through 10. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part, which is finding or creating your images. So I do understand that a lot of times finding the right pictures that go with your website could be challenging. And oftentimes I think that this actually holds people back. So I'm going to cover the different ways that you can get pictures for your website and how you're going to be able to use those pictures on your website. So one of the first options that you have is using stock photo websites. So there's a lot of different stock photo websites out there. Just make sure that you don't use stock photos that are overused. There are some websites that use like the same lady, the same picture of that same lady, that I've seen that same picture like on 20 other websites. And so what that means to me is like they didn't take enough time to think it through, and like they kind of rushed through it and just picked whatever they found right away. So it kind of makes me not trust people or trust them as much if they're using a picture on their website that's kind of overused in other places. So kind of be careful with this and don't use pictures that are overused in other places. The next piece is Creative Commons. So there is a lot of free pictures out there that you can use. And most of them, like if you go to Flickr, you're going to be able to find a lot of the different ones that are free. And if you do like free stock photo websites, you're going to get a lot. If you Google that, you're going to get a lot of results about just tons of websites that are willing to give you free photos to use on your website. And some of them will require for you to give them credit. So make sure that you give them credit when needed. Some of them don't even require for you to give them credit. And so just pay attention on that. Another thing to consider is that you may want to hire a photographer. For example, if you do coaching, or if you do like, if you sell wedding cakes, or there's certain things that people just have to see a picture of. So there's no way that you're going to find a stock photo that actually encompasses, exactly what you're selling. So sometimes you will need to hire a photographer. So keep that in mind. If your business requires you to be selling certain products, then you need to have pictures of your products and make sure that you have those professionally done, or that they look really good, and it's not just like something that you throw together. If your business or service or product is very personal, that's another reason why you would hire a photographer. I guess one of the examples I can think of right away is a life coach. So there's so many life coaches, out there. And a lot of times, since it's so personal, like life coaching is a very personal thing to do, what stands out in your business is you. So having a photographer actually highlight that and highlight your personality and your approach and capture that in a picture is really the best way to do it. So sometimes you're going to need to hire a photographer to get good pictures on your actual website. Another option is taking your own pictures. Maybe you have a smaller budget, you're not able to really hire a photographer. At this point, you could either like buy a tripod and take pictures on your iPhone, or, have someone in your family take pictures for you, or take your own pictures really if you need to. And you can be creative and play with this. So yeah, you have the option to take your own pictures and just kind of get creative with that part. Now, how will you use any of these pictures that you're getting, whether it's through stock photos, hiring a photographer, or taking your own pictures? Sometimes you'll have to have product images for your e-commerce website if you're selling products. Sometimes you'll need images for your blog posts, or graphics for your social media. And sometimes they're just website pictures that you're going to need on your about page, or just general pictures that you're going to need on your other website pages. So kind of think of the different kind of pages that you have and what kind of pictures would fit that particular page very well. So let's go ahead and get more specific about the creative resources and tools that are out there that you can use to create images for your particular website. So some of the things that I'm going to mention, a lot of them are going to be free. So if you're not very comfortable with Photoshop or other ways to edit images, don't be intimidated at all. A lot of these are very simple and easy to use, and they don't require you to have a degree in any kind of graphic design or anything like that. One of the tools that is really cool is Pixlr. It's Pixlr. It allows you to edit a lot of your pictures, add words to them, make them cool. My next one is Canva. This is one of my personal favorite tools because anyone can go in there and create beautiful looking images for your blog posts. They even have options to make beautiful covers for your Facebook or Twitter or other social media accounts. And that's really one of the coolest tools that are out there that allows you to do cool looking graphics without having to really be an expert at graphic design. Most of the pictures there are free, but they do offer like premium options. If you want to use some of their pictures, they'll be like $1 for each picture, but it's totally worth it. It's really fun. I really recommend playing with it and kind of getting familiar with that as a great way to create ongoing pictures for your website or your blog or social media. The next two are kind of more like image editing, which is Pixabay, PicJumbo. Pixabay has a lot of free pictures that you can use. So that allows you to have it's one of the stock photo places that you can get like tons and tons of free pictures. And PicJumbo is another option that if you're looking to have good looking pictures, then that's a really good place to go as well. PicMonkey is another one that allows you to edit a lot of your pictures without having to do a lot of software manipulation. It's kind of like an easy to use kind of thing. If you have a iPad or an iMac or Windows, it doesn't matter what kind of device that you have. Aviary is a really good app that you can use. It's usually like a desktop app or an iPad app. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, Aviary, but it's a really great tool that allows you to kind of edit your pictures, add words to them, watermark them, borders, different cool things like that. And it's a completely free app from Adobe, and it's available. Even there's online versions of it available. So that's a great other app that you can use. Now, my personal favorite is WordSwag. So I use a lot of WordSwag quotes. So I have an iPad that I use a lot of. I have an iPad where I have WordSwag, which is a really cool app, and it just allows you to create really cool graphics. These are more for like quotes and for your blog posts and things like that. But it's really cool because it allows you to play with different fonts. It allows you to sort through the Pixabay library, which is just tons of free stock photos that you can use on your blog post or your website. And then you can go in there and play with text and fonts and colors and different things like that. I really enjoy it. If you go to my website, you'll actually see different examples of WordSwag. A lot of my quotes are created through this particular app. And it's an app that I really recommend, even though it does cost like $3 or $4. It's really awesome. Another set of paid options are on the right. So Graphic River is one of the places that I go to a lot if I need to find good stock photos. Generally, I use the small version of the different photos. The small version is usually like $1. The medium is usually like $2. So depending what you're needing the pictures for, if you're wanting to print something like make a brochure or a flyer or something like that, I would really recommend getting the highest resolution picture. But if you're going to just use it on your website or something like that, then just keep the very small or maybe the medium one. That's going to be perfect for your website. You don't need anything like really, really high resolution because you're going to need to make it smaller for your website anyways. Another place is Shutterstock. So this is more like of a membership website where you can pay ahead of time, and like say for every month you have a certain amount of pictures that you can download for each month or for each day. So it's a really cool site. Now it is a little bit more pricey, but it does provide you with higher quality images, and they're not as overused as some other websites that have stock photos that are a little bit less expensive. Another one that I used to use is Dreamstime. They have a lot of really good stock photos. So most of these are just different websites that you can get stock photos from. And it's a really good site to go to and just kind of sort through them. And the next one I recommend is iStockPhoto. Again, this is another membership kind of website that you can look through and kind of subscribe and pay like a monthly fee. Sometimes you can also buy credits. So what that means, you can buy like, for example, 20 credits, and then you can use those credits at any time. So you don't have to be restricted on the amount of time that you can use those pictures, because sometimes you're not able to have pick all your pictures that you want on your website in one sitting. Another one that I use is 123rf.com. They've got a good selection again of stock photos. So the reason I'm mentioning multiple ones is sometimes you're going to need to look through different stock photo websites to find the right pictures for your particular need. While, I do have a membership on a couple of these, it's really important to kind of keep your options open and explore the different places, because a picture may not be available in one place, but it is available someplace else. So now, if you're just making one website like a one-time thing, then you may not need to have as many different accounts. But it's good to kind of keep your options open and realize that, hey, if one place doesn't have a lot of pictures that you're really liking, there's tons of other places that you can search to find like really good graphics for your website. I find this part is really, really fun for me in particular, just finding the different images, searching and using the different cool tools that are available, mostly for free, to create wonderful images that will capture people's attention, and you can use them on social media and other different channels as well. So that really covers the actual images on your website. Let's go ahead and move on to the next piece, which is outlining your homepage. So your homepage is going to be the most important page on your website. I think I've already said this twice, but I can't really emphasize this enough. What ends up happening is that since it is the most important page, this is also the one that you need to spend the most time kind of planning and organizing and knowing what to prioritize, and your navigation and what kind of impression that you want to make, like that first few seconds. It's very important to have a clear and single call to action. So if you want people to download your free book or your free trial or make an appointment, or whatever you would like for them to do, have them do one thing. Do not ask them to call you and also download this and also subscribe to your newsletter and also check this other thing out. Like, don't make the mistake of crowding your homepage. And this is what a lot of people really do. They try to fit in as much information as they can on their homepage because they're just kind of scared that people aren't going to click on any other pages. And so this kind of creates this insecurity where you try to cram everything in one page, and it ends up drawing people away from your website because there's just too much there to actually digest. So making sure that you have a single call to action, you're keeping it clean, you're keeping it very simple. Also, make sure that you have a way that you can collect your visitors' contact information. So oftentimes, people will go to your website, and unless you have a blog or some kind of social media following or some reason for them to come back, most people will not come back to your website again. And this is a fact of life, and people just don't have, people's attention span are really, really short nowadays. So if you don't ask for their contact information in exchange or of either a white paper, cheat sheet, some guide, some kind of tool, list of, things to avoid, just having something there that they can find valuable and that they're willing to give you their, name and email for is really important, because more than likely that person will not be coming back to your website unless you give them a reason to. So this could also be like a newsletter. So if you're publishing a blog post every single week, you can also invite people to sign up for your newsletter, and they'll give you their first name and their email, and then you can follow up with them through there. So making sure that you have some way to capture that is really, really crucial. So this also goes to the next piece, which is knowing your audience and your purpose. We've sort of already covered that, but your homepage really needs to speak to them. So if they don't find themselves compelled by the copy and images and appearance of your homepage, it's very unlikely that they're going to click on any other pages of your website if that first page doesn't appeal to them. So making sure that you have that very crystal clear is a really big part of that. And again, keeping your branding and your language consistent. So making sure that your logo is very clear, making sure that your color is very clear, whatever color pattern that you're using, the language. So if you're being funny, if you're using a lot of humor, or if you're being more professional, scientific. Just kind of select your language and keep it consistent on your homepage as well as on the rest of your actual pages. Drafting out this piece kind of makes everything, all the other pages on your website kind of fall into place, because this is like sort of the hub of the rest of your website, and concentrating on making this really good kind of makes everything else go seamless. And although you may still have to go in there and think about what's going to go on each individual page, just knowing what's going to go on your homepage helps you be aware of what you really want to focus. And also it allows you to think of what other pieces that you want to prioritize, but you might want to organize someplace else. So that pretty much covers the outlining of your homepage. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step, which is registering your domain name. So this is really moving towards the actual building of the website. So I would not register my domain name until you have most of the other things planned out, until you've done your market research, until you've kind of figured out your branding, your logo, your colors, and everything like that. Your domain name is very important, and it's a huge part of your branding. It's a huge part of how people perceive you online. And so making sure that you have a good domain name is really important. And I'm just going to give you a few different tips on this. Register your domain name for 3 to 5 years. A lot of times people register their domain only for 1 year, and Google kind of does not like that, because there's a lot of websites that are registered for a year and then they're either shady or they conduct questionable business, and then they shut down and open under a new domain name, a couple of days after they shut that one down. So registering your domain name for 3 to 5 years lets people not only know that you're serious, but it also lets Google know that you're not some kind of scammer, like you're here to stay. And it does help with your search engine ranking and optimization to have your domain name registered for more than 1 year. The next tip is to keep it short and memorable. So don't make people like have to memorize an entire sentence to get to your website. Keep it kind of short and memorable and simple. Another piece is don't make people think. So sometimes people like to get creative, and on the borderline of being creative and cool and hip, sometimes people use different things, like the number 8, like for the word creative, you just use the number 8 in there, or just like different language, like playing with language or words. This is not really the place to play with words or language. This is the place to be really concise and clear and simple. So don't make people think about how to spell it. Don't make people think about what to type in. Make it very, very easy to do. And keep, obviously, your domain consistent with your branding, your logo, and the other pieces of your actual marketing and your website. I do recommend going to GoDaddy to register your domain name. I've just used GoDaddy for such a long time. That's my personal recommendation. You can use anywhere else. However, if you do use GoDaddy, whatever month it is, like right now, for example, it's May. But if I search for GoDaddy promo codes for May 2015, then I'm going to get like a lot of good results of different promo codes that I could use. So at that point, I could get like, a .com domain name for like $1 or $1.99 or, different things like that. So oftentimes if you just pay for the full price, it's like $12.99. It can be, $14.99 in some places. So just never pay more than like $15 for your domain name per year. And like I said, GoDaddy has a really good reputation of always having really good promo codes if it's like your first domain name that you're registering. Then they also usually have different specials, like if you're wanting to register multiple domain names later down the road. So that really covers the domain name. So that's really it about registering your domain name and making sure that you register it for 3 to 5 years. This brings us to the next topic, which is about selecting your platform. So a lot of times, depending on whether you're going to hire somebody to do your website or whether you intend to do it yourself, that's going to kind of determine what kind of platform that you're using to build your website. So a lot of the do-it-yourself kind of tools is Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy Site Builder. There's different kind of do-it-yourself tools that allow you to build your own website. And they kind of walk you through it, and they have like a template that they already provide for you. So this is a pretty good option if you just don't have a very good budget and you feel like you can actually build your own website. There's just all these kind of do-it-yourself kind of tools that allow you to build your website without really having a lot of technical knowledge and still having it look pretty decent. The only downfall about using some of these do-it-yourself tools is that a lot of other people are using the same template, and then also your search engine optimization is kind of sacrificed a little bit because a lot of the actual infrastructure and the way that that particular platform is being used, it's not really optimized for search engine friendliness. So I would use these with a word of caution that sometimes like it's not the best way to go for everybody, but it is a really great option if you don't have a big budget for your website, or you actually feel like you're pretty comfortable with technology and then you could figure this out yourself. Another set of platforms that I usually recommend are content management systems, or CMSs. There's different ones available, WordPress being my absolute favorite. There's Joomla, there's Drupal, Modex. There's different ones available that you can actually build your website on. And depending on your needs, so like if you're using your website to sell something, or you're using your website for different purposes, the purpose of your website can actually kind of also guide you to what kind of platform that you're going to need. So for example, some of the do-it-yourself kind of tools, the security isn't as good, so maybe it's also something to think about as far as when you're selecting a platform for your website is, security, easy to use, how long is it going to take you to build your website, different things like that. So there's tons of different platforms out there, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about my favorite one, which is WordPress. I recommend using WordPress for your website. This is my personal recommendation. Now, not everybody will fit, in this particular category, but WordPress is very flexible and it's awesome, and it's just a great platform that's stable and it's scalable. Another really great reason that I love WordPress is it's very community driven. So there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of fresh ideas, there's a lot of ongoing changes, and it's just really awesome to kind of see how the web moves with WordPress, because it is like the number one content management system out there, and for many reasons. It's also very easy to use for newbies. So if you've never built a website ever in your life, WordPress is easy enough that it is a very good tool for do-it-yourself. Like you can figure out how to do it yourself through WordPress, because there's not a lot of technical knowledge that is needed to actually create a basic website. Now, if you're going to need a lot of functionality, a lot of custom built things, then that's going to be slightly different. But for the most part, anybody could build a website on WordPress. Another great thing about it is that it gives you complete control and flexibility. So what that means is some of these other platforms allow you to build a website there, but then they either own your domain name, or they're not going to make it easy for you to move your content someplace else later on, or they limit the kind of traffic you can get. Like, for example, some of the website builders, like the do-it-yourself kind, they actually make you host your website where you build it. So you don't have the option to select your hosting. You're kind of stuck there with whatever hosting they provide. So whenever you're using WordPress, though, you're very open to these different possibilities, and you can choose your hosting and you can choose all the different options. And you have pretty much complete control about moving your website, different things like that. Nobody else owns your website. It's run completely by you. And so at that point, if you wanted to move it or change it or different things like that, you don't really have to contact a third party or anybody else. So it's really great for that. Another part is it's really easy to get help for WordPress because there's a lot of people behind it. Again, this goes back to the community. There's just such a huge, awesome community around WordPress that it's really easy to find someone that will help you with a really quick question you might have. And they also have forums and different ways that you can find help if you have a specific question. Or you can also collaborate. So for example, if you feel that you may be able to build it out, most of it yourself, but then you would like to collaborate with a designer or a developer or someone to write your content or different things like that, then you can easily collaborate with other people because it's just such a well-known platform that most people will have some experience with it if they do any kind of online work through like websites and different things like that. I could use like another like list of like 1,000 more reasons why WordPress is amazing and awesome for your website. Like I said, this might need to go in a future presentation because I could really spend like hours talking about how awesome WordPress is and why it's so exciting and wonderful to work with. But that is my personal take on it. And so sometimes, as a brand new person using WordPress for the very first time, some of it might seem a little bit overwhelming and intimidating. And there's so many plugins and there's so many themes that it can seem like, oh my goodness, how do I make the right choice? So just keep in mind that there is no right or wrong way. Like there is no right or wrong way to use WordPress. So if it seems like it's too easy or it's like, oh my goodness, this is really easy, then that's really awesome. And if you feel like it's a little bit challenging, then you might want to think about either hiring someone or moving to a different platform or just spending a little bit more time with it and learning it a little bit better. It's just a great tool that allows you to get a website up and running literally within a few days, or maybe a week or two, depending on, your timeline and your comfort with technology. The next piece after you kind of determine your platform is to look for your hosting. So this is a short list about what different things you can look for in a hosting company. Really, really big and important and number one thing to look at, probably not number one thing, but very important, is uptime and reliability. So a lot of times people will select a web hosting and they don't really pay attention to that. But if a web hosting company doesn't promise like at least 99.9 uptime, then it's just really not a good choice. So you wanted to make sure that your website isn't going down every other day or that it's crashing every few months or anything like that. Another thing to look out for when you're looking at hosting is tech support. Do they provide good tech support? Are they available over the phone? Do they have live chat, email? Like what kind of ways do they have that they can be reached? And what is your preferred way to contact them? So if you really don't like talking on the phone, it doesn't matter if they have tech support over the phone. You'd rather do like live chat. So kind of look out for what kind of tech support they offer and what channels they're available to you. Another really big thing is if your web hosting company offers backups or daily backups. So this is a biggie because sometimes your website can get hacked. Sometimes things can just go wrong, whether you're installing a plugin or making an update. There's so many things that could go wrong. So having backups available and easy to access is really, really important. Also kind of look at the web hosting's reputation and reviews from other people that are using it. Kind of pay attention to that and look for their reviews and what are their strengths and weaknesses, because most of the time there's going to be strengths and weaknesses, and it's like anything else, any choice that you make, there will be pros and cons, and there's really no way to avoid that. Another thing to look for is email features. So there are some web hosting companies that do not allow you to host your email accounts there. So in this particular instance, I would recommend using a third-party app like Google Apps, and it allows you to, use Gmail as a way that you can check your email. There are some web hosting companies that all they do is web hosting, or all they do is web hosting for WordPress. So in that instance, they don't host your email. If you're looking for a web hosting company that does allow you to host your email there, making sure that you look for that ahead of time is really important, because sometimes this catches people by surprise and it's pretty much too late to change because they're already there and everything. Also, the ease of use. So most of the time, a lot of the shared hosting companies, they use what is called cPanel. So cPanel is really easy to use because it's like an interface that allows you to kind of control everything on your hosting, look at everything in one place. So making sure that it's easy to use. I know, for example, that GoDaddy hosting is sort of challenging because they don't have cPanel. They actually used to not offer cPanel at all, and you had to kind of navigate through all these different menus to get to something very basic. And there's some of them that are easier to use and some that are not. I would recommend a hosting company that uses either cPanel or some other way of getting around the back end that's really easy to use, even if you're not like, a tech genius. So there are some premium hosting companies that allow you to kind of, they install WordPress for you, so you don't even have to mess with some of these things. So that's something else that you can actually look at and determine if the ease of use is very important, and what kind of things that you're willing to do, and what kind of things that you feel like, it's better for them to install this for me and set it up for me. Another big thing now is SSL certificates and their pricing. So there's a lot of hosting companies that allow you to kind of bundle your hosting, your domain, and your SSL certificate. SSL certificates are kind of a big deal now because they are impacting the results on search engines. So Google made it more clear that, hey, if you have SSL certificate on your website, it's going to improve the ranking of your website. So it's kind of good to kind of look at that option and realize and see if it's actually available to you through the hosting company. The next piece is security and stability. Like, there is no web hosting company that can guarantee that your website will not get hacked. I mean, Visa gets hacked. There's just all these top companies that are getting hacked. So there's not really going to be a hosting company that can guarantee that 100% security. There's no such thing. But kind of looking over and looking and paying attention at reviews and the reputation. If there's a lot of people on a particular hosting company that, they're saying that their website was hacked, then it's probably a good idea to kind of stay away from that company. But making sure that you do that kind of research ahead of time can prevent a lot of bad things from happening down the road. Another thing to look at is average page load speed. So what that means is your website, however long your website takes to load, is very important. And Google really looks at this, and it determines how high it'll rank you by lots of different pieces. But this is one of the key components of how Google ranks your website. A lot of hosting companies, because it's a shared account, your speed might be slower. And so a more dedicated hosting, or a hosting account company that has less websites on each server, is going to have a little bit better of a load speed, as well as the kind of equipment they're using. Like, are they using servers that are really old? Are their servers really up to date? And different things like that. Just kind of keeping an eye open for that is a good idea. And then storage and bandwidth. So these are these other two items that there's certain web hosting companies that limit the kind of visitors that you can get. Like, you can only get this much traffic every month, and after that they start charging you. There's some that they say it's unlimited traffic, but what that really ends up being is it's unlimited traffic, but then after a certain point, your website starts loading a little bit slower for other people. So even though it says unlimited traffic and bandwidth and things like that, there's usually fine lines under that and fine print that they're not quite telling you. So making sure that you have looked at that and that you have room to grow in that area, because at the very beginning your website may not get a lot of traffic, but over time it's going to start building. And if you're going to have to pay a lot of extra money for each time that you get a new surge of traffic, then you might want to consider looking at a good different option for your hosting. You also need to look at what kind of CMSs they support. So there's WordPress, Joomla, all the different kind of content management systems. So some of the actual hosting companies, they only focus on one particular kind of hosting. So there are a lot of companies that only host WordPress websites, and that is all they do. That is their specialty. And so making sure that you pay attention to that is also really important. Last but definitely not least is your price point. So basically, most of the time you're going to be fine with a shared hosting account. So the price point for a shared hosting account is going to range between $60 and $100 for a whole year of hosting. What that means is there's usually not going to be a monthly fee. I would really stay away from monthly hosting fees, just because if you forget to pay that month, your website can get down, or your credit card expires, things like that. There's so many things that could go wrong if you're paying your hosting on a monthly basis. So I would find a hosting company that you can either pay like every single year. There's some that have really good deals for like 2 or 3 years as well. But for a shared hosting account, you should not be paying more than $100 for a full year of hosting. And there are some managed and dedicated other hosting accounts, and those could vary. So it could be anywhere from like $20 a month to $50 a month for like a single website. Now, if you're going to want to use multiple WordPress sites or multiple websites on your hosting, that's something else to look for on your hosting is, do they have the capability of allowing you to add more websites without having to add more to the price? If you're looking for something affordable, your shared hosting is the best way to go. If you're kind of feeling like you're wanting to have something that is going to be scalable and that it's going to grow with you, I would look at managed hosting or dedicated hosting. And like I said, those are going to be more like between $20 and $50 a month for your website. So don't be surprised if you see some hosting companies that are charging $50 a month or $30 a month. Like, that's not really a typo or anything like that. There are different kind of hosting companies that do that because they offer you like extra support and security, and they do things for you, like they install WordPress for you. They have like someone always looking and paying attention, making sure that websites don't get hacked. There's all sorts of great different services out there, and it really depends what kind of website you're doing, as well as how much traffic you're expecting and different things like that. So making sure that you kind of look through the different things and selecting your right hosting company is a pretty important part of moving forward and actually launching your website. So it's decision time. So really, after you have planned everything out, after you selected your domain name and your hosting and the platform and everything that we just covered, you're going to really need to really think about whether you're going to build your own website or you're going to hire somebody to do it for you. So a big component of this will be like how comfortable you feel with technology, what your budget is. We're going to cover a little bit of the pros and cons of either hiring somebody or doing it yourself in the next step. Building your own website is a great idea if you have like a very low budget or no budget. So for example, if you're just starting out, your business is like, startup, you don't have the capital or anything like that, then building your own website is going to be a really good way to kind of go about doing this. In this step, we're going to compare the benefits of building your own website versus actually hiring somebody else to do it for you. The do-it-yourself option is really great if you have like low or no budget. So if you have like $100 to spend, it's just not a great idea to try to hire somebody. It's probably best to kind of find a way to do it on your own. Now, keep in mind there is a learning curve. So although there's all these tools and wonderful services out there that allow to build your own website, there's usually somewhat of a learning curve if you've never built a website before. And it can take a good amount of time. So sometimes I see that people get frustrated and it's just taking them much too long, so they decided to hire somebody instead. So be prepared to learn it and dedicate some time to it as well. So if you feel really comfortable with technology, it's not going to be a problem at all. Like if you can use PowerPoint and Word, more than likely you can build your own website. So, it doesn't mean like you have to be a computer science major or anything like that. It just means that you feel comfortable with just basic things. So sometimes that's going to be plenty for you to go ahead and build your own website. And it's a great opportunity for you to learn new skills and kind of pick up new things that you can learn along the way. So sometimes building your own website is a great idea. Another reason that you would want to build your own website is if you feel like there's a lot of very particular things that you want done in a certain way. For example, like if you feel that, you're comfortable with writing your content, On the flip side, sometimes it's a great idea to actually just hire somebody to build your website for you. So in this particular instance, it's really important to kind of have a budget as well as a timeline in mind and just know what to expect. This also gives you some professional input. So people that have been building websites like myself and my other colleagues, so we kind of know what are the best practices, what works better than, something else. And you don't have to kind of learn these things that we've kind of already experienced and found out for ourselves. So you can get someone that has already gone through the process multiple times and it feels very comfortable with it. And it kind of helps you feel like, okay, well, I don't have to do this by myself. Somebody else can help me and give me ideas or feedback or input. Generally, it's a quicker turnaround time when you hire somebody because they have a higher sense of urgency to get your website done and get paid. On the other side, like if you're just like doing it by yourself, it might take you a lot of time. You'll put it off for a week or two and then come back to it later, and it could take you like months. I had a client who took like literally 4 months thinking that they were going to build their own site, and they had like 2 pages done in those 4 months, and they eventually went to hire somebody. So hiring somebody usually can save you time and stress and frustration if you easily lose your patience and if you don't feel comfortable with some of the things that are involved in actually creating the website and the content and the images and the design. I really recommend to do your research to find the right person. So if you feel more comfortable working with somebody in person, then I would look for on LinkedIn or do like a Google search for, whatever city you live in, WordPress expert or WordPress designer or WordPress developer. Like I said earlier, I'm very biased to WordPress, but you could also just, look for somebody that does websites in your area. And so if you feel comfortable working with somebody in person, that's the best way to do it. If you're okay with kind of communicating over the phone and email and chat and things like that, then at that point you could probably also outsource it to a different place and have someone take care of that for you without necessarily having to meet them in person, which usually works out for the most part. Now, it is somewhat more challenging, I feel, to build websites for clients that I never get to meet in person because there is a little bit of a barrier there. But usually not enough to be like, okay, this is just not going to work. So kind of find out what you need. Do you need someone to work with you in person? Or are you okay with kind of working, with the other person working remotely? And ask around for recommendations. There's usually other friends or people that will know, hey, this person did a really great job with my website. So just kind of ask your friends and in your social circles to find a good person. And I would kind of ask different people and then contact multiple people and kind of, ask them a few different questions and see if their personality and their style and your message and your brand, if everything kind of feels like it's going to fit. I would ask, honestly, like 3 to 5 people and then just kind of decide between them. Don't just go with the first choice because sometimes you'll find that there's some people that are much better at communication, or there's some people that are much better at like making their point across or different things like that. So I would really like look around for that. And a good resource is LinkedIn, your social circles, different things like that that will help you find a really great person that can build your website and make it a faster turnaround time without you having to pull your hair out. So we're getting really close to the end of this, and I would really recommend that you see 8 digital marketing strategies for your website. So this is a presentation I created for after your website is complete. Like, what do you do with it after it's done? So you've got your website, now what do you do? And so I talk a lot about content strategy, traffic strategy, marketing strategy, social media strategy, all the different pieces that run in the back of your actual website, because once your website is like launched, it's really not done. There's like so many other pieces and components that go behind it to help you move forward and grow your business with it. Okay, and that's really it. This is a short bio. You can learn more about me on my website or my blog, and you can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, on Google+. I use Twitter more than any of the other social media networks. So if you're looking for like a quick way to say hi or to contact me, Twitter is actually the fastest way to contact me. And that is really all. I really hope that some of this hit home for you and that you feel more comfortable and able to plan out your website and draft it out through these different steps that I kind of broke down. That way that everything doesn't seem so overwhelming and like it's just this huge problem glooming over your head and it's like it's never going to get done. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I do WordPress web design and build websites and social media design for small businesses. So that is an option to hire me. I'm really passionate about what I do and I really feel excited when it comes to like creating a new website and getting started, planning it out and everything like that. It's one of my greatest passions in life and I hope that you found it helpful and I want to thank you for watching this. Please subscribe if you would like to get more tips about website building or WordPress or any of the topics that we talked about today. And feel free to comment below or share if you have any questions or if you think that this would be helpful for anybody else. Thank you and see you next week.